Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Ash, and today we are going to take a look at another RPG developer Bakin DLC. As a DLC ambassador, it is my pleasure to show you the last DLC of my DLC Showcase series. And to show you, we're going to go into the game gallery as always and select the project file that comes with Mokemo Factory's Monster Pixel Pack Vol.1. We'll edit this in read-only mode and get a glimpse at what Mokemo Factory has created. We have a lot of monsters that come with this pack based on all kinds of different themes: undead, plants, dinosaurs, etc. We can just ignore this about restricted editing mode warning. We're just going to click OK. We'll notice that the project file itself has two maps, and you can create your own projects from this map, or you can add the DLC assets of this particular DLC into your existing project, no problem. So let's go ahead and test play and see what happens when we explore this map. The scene is set. We've got soldiers. We've got a sign. Let's read the sign. The sign says nothing. Here's our first monster. Little dinosaur guy. Well, we ran into him. We are now fighting. We have a series of monsters as the hero. We can check these out. They're all 2D, so they'll work perfectly in your 3D game if you're using 2D assets and monsters, kind of like our hero here, who is a 2D sprite in this 3D environment. These monsters don't appear to have outlines, so they follow a pretty specific style where the outline is like just the same color as the monster. You consider it as no outline. It's a little bit of a contrast to our character who has an outline, but it looks like this is our 001 monster. Oh, it looks like they're pre-built with their own. Oh, I got absolutely wrecked for my hubris. Absolutely destroyed. So instead of playing that, we're going to go into the database and actually explore the monsters up close and personal. These would be casts, and they'll be in the 2D Monsters Pack Volume 1 folder here, although you can absolutely take these and put them in a different folder, rename this folder, subdivide them into further folders, put them wherever you like, and so on. We've got 20 monsters here, and we'll just go ahead and zoom in real close on the monster, as we don't really have a whole lot of animation assets that go with each monster, so we're kind of seeing more or less the complete package right here. And they do have, as casts, their own provided stats, their own growth types, their own equipment and abilities, their own AI for battle actions if you choose to use them out of the box like this, or I would highly recommend tailoring them to fit your game. They don't have names. This is just 001. They do, however, have descriptions, although these descriptions are in Japanese. So if we use Google Translate, we get a young dragon that values sleep above all else. The crystal on its back stores the dragon's drowsiness, and once it falls asleep, it will remain asleep until the crystal loses its glow. Adorable. Monster number 2 is this eye bat creature. I actually really like it. And maybe more of it's like a cross between a bat and a butterfly. It is said the jewels on its face and wings can predict the future, and it is favored by some nobles. However, its body is very soft and it can get into any place, so it is difficult to hunt it. A wolf dragon with skin of steel. It beats the wire-like mane on its head and attacks its enemies mercilessly. It is very aggressive, so if you see one, it is best not to approach it. I didn't. I approached the sleeping dragon, and this thing came out of nowhere and torched me. Actually, it was this thing that torched me. This thing right here. It looks a lot like the cow skull in the desert that Bugs Bunny finds and puts on. Oh, bury me not in the lone prairie. A monster whose vengeful soul has taken possession of the bones of its owner's body. It has flames in its hands that will burn it down along with itself and will throw them or touch them directly. That's horrifying. I love it. This is monster number 5, and this is already my favorite. It's a mimic book. A colony of creatures parasiting a book, generating tongues and fangs. They prey on unsuspecting people and create more of their kind. I love that. That's so cool. Awesome. A two-headed penguin that is wrapped in lightning and takes down its prey with 2 sharp consecutive strikes. It prefers stormy days and can often be seen purposely getting hit by lightning to use itself as a lightning rod and store up power. A spider monster whose skin covers the venom that leaks from its body. A poorly executed attack will spread the poison, so it is better to cut off its limbs and stop it from moving, which will cause less damage. That's something that I'm sure you would have to program into your game versus the lore. This looks like a duck mandrake. It actually reminds me a lot of a villain from Darkwing Duck. This little guy, I'm going to read his description because I'm curious. I'm very curious. A ghost that lives in a furoshiki. It has a habit of collecting worn out objects, but they are basically just junk. It loves to scare living things, and it always waiting for an opportunity from the shadows. It's just a little guy. It's just a little spooky guy. A little prankster. Just to give you a little goof, little gaff, and then he goes on his way. Don't hurt him or I will end you. This thing is just from Dune. It's just a big Dune worm. I'm having trouble with I guess it's an octopus bouncing in place. It's got 3 eyes. It looks really cool. This is the magnetite of the pack, evidently. I like its lone eye. Let's get its description. A giant spherical mechanical life form floating in the sky. Tubes inserted into its body carry the fuel it needs to function, and any excess energy is released from a ring above its head. So definitely scale this guy way up if you're going to use him as intended. Or maybe the creator of this pack should have scaled him way up. But, you know, having everything presented at the same size and just letting you do all of the scaling so that your monsters make sense in your world, I think is a good idea. This is like a lamprey almost. Except it looks like it's got a lot of flies surrounding it. Oh, I really like this one. He's cool. Very eldritch. Now we have a gator dragon. I like this concept a lot. Sort of a worm, I think. WYRM worm. Yeah, he's cool. I like him. A squid with some sort of crystalline growth. You could consider this a cold enemy only. You could have it outside of the water attacking on land. It doesn't seem to be in a position that would force it to be underwater, although that would certainly make sense. 17, this is too difficult for me to make out. I'm going to have to get a description. A slime that floats in the air by blowing up its own bubbles. Oh, I see. I see it now. It does not attack, but if it gets in danger, it will pop its bubbles and blow away everything around it, using the force of that force to make it run away, making it a notorious nuisance. It's kind of like the golden slime or silver slime, metal slime, any of those guys that run away from you in Dragon Quest. Next up, we have this adorable creature. Would absolutely have this as a pet. Look at that tail. 19, this is just a Christmas tree monster. It's got a present on its back even, an ornament arms, and a Santa beard. Please, let's read the description. I have to. A monster that appears in large numbers once every 2 years on Christmas night. It has the characteristic of knocking out living creatures, stuffing them into a box on its back, and carrying them off. The following year, it can be seen walking around handing out the presents that the creatures it encounters most want. But, okay, I like how unnerving that is. And number 20, which is this thing, this guy. I guess you could make him really, really small, or you could make him really, really big. He kind of has a never-ending story vibe about him. A monster covered in very sweet cream. It has a very gentle personality and usually lives in a deserted forest. If you become friendly with it, you will be able to lick the cream. It is said the cream tastes heavenly. That we're going to leave to the imagination of the developers involved, and that, my friends, viewers, Bakin engineers and developers alike, is the Mokemo Monster Factory Pixel Pack Vol.1. As I guess, these are all the exact same size. They take up the same amount of space no matter who it is, but you can absolutely scale them down. So then there's our book, which is scaled way down to be a more appropriate size. If it's going to be an actual book trying to pass itself off as just a normal book, but it's really a creature that wants to devour you. And then we can scale up monsters like this sandworm to make it a much more appropriate size. That's a scale of 5, a scale of 12 for our alligator dragon. That's not what I wanted to do at all, but you know, that's what ended up happening, so it's fine. 1.9 I think is an appropriate size for that. And then for these guys, I would actually scale them down to be much smaller, and I would take them and position them up in the air so that they are demonstrating how difficult they are to hunt, because they can get wherever they like. These guys are a pretty appropriate size, I think, already, and I'm really just spitballing sizes here, but you could make them smaller, make them cuter. The sleeping dragon, you could make him a little bit bigger. An herbivorous creature for sure, I would think. And then look at this. We can take and we can place the creature's baby next to it. And now we have 2 sizes. All right, so being that these are pixel monsters, they should be extremely easy to edit and recolor. Okay, so I said there were 20 monsters, and that's true, but there are also variations of these monsters that come with this pack. And under 2D stamps, we will be able to see all of our 20 monsters. And you'll notice the naming convention has them as a 3-digit number, and then a 0, and then no line. This 0 is referring to one of the 3 different color variations in which each monster is available. And the no line is referring to the no outline in the artwork of the monster. So I'm going to show you what all of these variants look like. We have a total of 20 different monster designs that come in 3 colors each. So we have 60 different monsters, and then each one of those monsters has one of 3 outline variations, either no outline, a black outline, or a colored outline, which brings our total amount of monsters up to 180. Although you probably won't use 180 different monsters, because I don't think you're going to use monsters that have that look the same, but they have different outlines on them. But I'm going to show you what they look like anyway. So monster 001, 0, no line. Then we have 001, 0, B line for black outline, and then call line for colored outline. And I think the colored outlines ones look superior. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments below, but I think these are the best looking of the monster variations. These are the ones that I would pick. I really do like colored outlines, but black outlines and no outlines are perfectly fine too. We have a red variation of this cute little dinosaur, again with a black outline and colored outline. And then we go on into a yellow variation where we have the black outline and colored outline. So realistically, if you stick with one of the outline styles, you do have about 60 monsters in this pack, pretty much, that are usable for you and your project. Next up, we've got this second monster, black outline, colored outline, looks great. A green version, black outline, colored outline, and a red version, which then has a black outline and colored outline. Next up, we've got our rock wolf, and with a black outline, colored. And then I'm just going to refrain from saying black outline and colored outline over and over again. So I'm just going to cycle through while I talk about the monsters in this pack. Really like the design of each one. I don't know if you'd be able to use every single one of them in your project and make it make sense as far as your monsters go, and just no other monster. You have to look at these as additive to your project. And then they are a very distinct style, so you'd have to decide if you'd like to find other assets that match the style of these pretty well, or if that's something that's important to you. None of them are humanoid, so you could kind of get away with just using these as your creatures. And while I did say that you have 60 monsters to use, once you decide on which outline style is the best one for your project, you could totally change up the scale of each of these monsters. And you could have really tiny versions, medium-sized versions, or like really huge versions. So your imagination will really help you with expanding the number of options with this pack. Now, as for this duck mandrake character, I wish I'd read the description for him. Like any mandrake, it's probably going to emit a high-pitched scream when you pull it out of the ground, but I don't think this one screams. I think it emits an ear-rupturing quack. Just my thoughts. Little ghost guy here is so cute. Love him. And I prefer the colored outlines on this stuff, but if I were going to import these into a project that was using the default Bakin 2D sprites, I'd probably go with a black outline just to match them well. So these would be all your monsters and all of your non-human creatures. Then you could have pixelated night characters and stuff, humanoid creatures that you could bring in. And I don't think a lot of people would berate the style differences, what little there would be. So like if you wanted to use Lowe's sprites, for example, I think you could do that. You could also just use a selection of these and call them regional. And then they would be in a specific area for your game. But then like the color and shading techniques that are used and the fidelity of the pixels used for each one, I know I'm getting a little bit too far into territory that some devs just will not care about. And that's fine. Ooh, I really like the metallic black and white version of this guy. And then the space green looks really cool too. But if you wanted to, and if you do care about that sort of thing, then you could still use these alongside other pixelated styles if you're going to go humanoid, because I really don't think the vast majority of your players are going to really be picky about the pixel styles. It's when you put these up against other monsters that I think that they would kind of notice a difference. They would feel it, and they might point that out. Art styles that mesh well with one another are pretty important if you're going to be using a variety of assets from different places. So that's why we have lots and lots of different artists out there. And a project might make use of just one artist, or it might make use of several. But I bet if you're playing a professionally done game that you're going to be seeing assets that, for the most part, completely match because of the art direction. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about all that nonsense now. We're looking at our Christmas tree monster now. Gosh, he looks amazing. Lovely idea. Super cool. And then finally, our really weird little cream monster. And I don't like this concept at all. Oh my gosh. I could see this being used for a game where you have to do something with a cake, and there are just a ton of these guys all around as NPCs and some monsters. You've got your friendly ones, and then you've got your monster ones, and then you've got your hero, which looks like this. Yeah, you can make the entire cast of characters out of just one monster. Okay, so if you wanted to change the colors even further, it would be a fairly simple thing to export these out and then go and just swap out the color palette of the frames that you have exported. You can use a program like paint.net, which is free. You could use CSP, you could use Paint Shop, whatever you got going on. Photoshop if you're inclined, GIMP. I should have said GIMP first. That's probably the one that most people would be using, but super easy. And then you've got all of these delicious, cute templates for monsters. And if you fancy yourself savvy, you can take and add things to them like additional horns or make the spikes a little bit longer and try to supplement the style while you attempt to create alternate versions of these monsters to populate your world with more variants, with more types. So you see this one, you know he's going to be basic. He's going to be really easy to fight. But when you see the yellow version, you know that one's going to be a lot stronger. Maybe you've even made it bigger. You've sized it up. But maybe you'd like to have more than 3 types. Anyway, this particular presentation's gone on long enough. What do you think about the Mokemo Factory Monster Pixel Pack Volume 1? Will you be getting this? Sound off in the comments below, and I will see you in the next exciting adventure. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and a huge thank you to Smile Boom for allowing me to be a part of the DLC Ambassador experience. I greatly appreciate it. Arigatou gozaimashita. Bye for now.